This is post-video editing Patience speaking. I just want to slap a giant warning label on this video. It gets pretty dark, and if you're triggered by topics or just want to avoid topics such as suicide, death, or addictions, you would probably want to click away from this video. Anyway, enjoy! One of the very first things that came from the Scaled and Icy era was Tyler's pink hair. Its presence had a sort of mystery to it, especially since it came along with the strange video of Josh using a beam to turn objects pink. Plenty of theories have been thrown out about what it all means. I think that the true significance of it isn't something as specific as pink hair means Tyler is under control of the bishops, but rather it's a symbol of a wider theme that comes with Scaled and Icy. The term pink clouding might be familiar to those with experience in addiction and recovery. The phrase is used to describe a phenomenon that typically occurs at the beginning of sobriety. Pink clouding is an excessive optimism about recovery from addiction to substances, with a subtext of being in denial about the extent of one's recovery. Essentially, the addict feels all the good feelings of being off the substances they were abusing before, and they're excited to recover, thinking it will be easy, but subconsciously being in denial of the reality of the difficulty that comes with recovery and sobriety. Now, this may seem disconnected to anything 21 Pilots related, but with the presence of references to addiction and substances being surprisingly ubiquitous in Scaled and Icy, I don't think it's a coincidence that the color pink is both what is used to describe this phenomenon and also what color Tyler's hair became at the start of this era. So here we are with Sigh, an album with poppy vibes, very happy sounding when you don't listen too closely to the lyrics, and Tyler with pink hair and his head in the clouds. But in reality, it's got some of the darkest songs that 21 Pilots has released. And then we can't forget the hosts of the live stream experience, Sally Secarver and Dan Lisden, two bishops we haven't heard much about until now. Secarver, the bishop hidden in the lyrics of Tear in My Heart, who represents insecurities and fears around love and the loss of loved ones, and Lisden, the bishop hidden in Polarize, All I Feel is Denial, the bishop of denial. Right away, we're thrown into Good Day, and Tyler has lost everything: his job, his wife, his child, and his best friend. Secarver shows up immediately in the loss he has experienced, especially the loss of Jenna. But it's a good day. I'm all right. I think that I'm all right. Lisden, the bishop of denial, jumps right in. An addiction, whatever it may be, doesn't look so bad right now. My sunshine is a buzz and a light. It continues to go on throughout the album. Keep Your Bliss, There Is Nothing Wrong with This gives another strong taste of denial, and we watch Tyler keep his calm as if nothing is wrong. The people around him run around and scream in a panic, whether it's on land or in the water. And he remains calm as if nothing is happening. Nothing matters as the world is collapsing around him, and without a fight, he's dragged away in a net. He looks away and closes his eyes, blocking out the situations around him. Tyler squeezes shut or covers his eyes 3 times in the Saturday music video alone. He even shakes his head no as he does so. Throughout the era, over and over again, Tyler covers up his eyes, blocking the world out, as if to deny reality. Now, we can't forget the title of the album itself, Scaled and Icy. Clancy is Dead. And of course, this title was chosen very carefully. There is no doubt in my mind that Tyler and Josh knew that there would be many in the clique who would not believe the hidden message, especially with Sia's propaganda already in their heads. There's no doubt in my mind that they knew others would accuse those people of being in denial. And of course, they sprinkled the lyrics scaled back and isolated into one of the songs. Very purposefully. And then, Redecorate makes its way onto the stage. It's definitely one of the darkest songs in the entire discography. It doesn't hide the darkness and pain behind the sheen of denial that makes its way over the top of most of the other Psy songs. The sense of loss is tangible not just in the lyrics, but also in the instrumentals. Liston has stepped back a bit, and Sakarver has taken the reins a bit more. But while the song itself isn't a denial, it does make clear that the topic itself is denial after loss. Each of the three protagonists know and don't deny that they desire death, but they also know that there are people who will be left behind that will be affected, whether they like it or not. Redecorate acknowledges denial in a specific way, denial as a stage of grief. It discusses a certain mechanism of denial that has been seen in those grieving loved ones who aren't able or wanting to move on and act as though their loved one who is gone is still there, that they're returning and need their room. But it is presented as a question. Should they keep it on display or redecorate? It's a question that we hope our loved ones should never have to ask about our own things. But if they did, what would be the answer? I think there is a strong connection between Redecorate and its predecessor, Neon Gravestones. We already know that both songs cover the topic of suicide, and their tone is incredibly similar. Just listen to the reverse instrumentals of Neon Gravestones next to the forward instrumental of Redecorate. In Neon Gravestones, Tyler tells us, "Promise me this. If I lose to myself, you won't mourn a day and you move on to someone else." People interpret this in opposite ways. Some think he is saying, "Don't just mourn me for a day and then replace me." Others think he's saying, "If I commit suicide, don't even mourn me." I think the latter meaning makes more sense in the context of this song, because it's about not glorifying people after they commit suicide. Let's say that's the case, and Tyler tells us to move on to someone else in Neon Gravestones. What would be his answer to the question, should they keep it on display or redecorate? Of course, the answer would be redecorate. He chose it as the title and as the last word sung in the song for a reason. In the context of this song, redecorating is taking action to move on from someone's death, to further one's way out of the first stage of grief, denial. Again, we see Sakarver and Liston's presence as loss and denial. The chorus says, "The last thing I want to do is make my people make decisions." Now, Tyler has shouted at us in the concerts before that we are his people. In the line, "Never ask permission, he just hopes that they forgive," I think the "they" is referring to his people, us. So we, Tyler's people, are reading a title and we are turning the verb redecorate into a noun whenever we see it. It's only natural that we would, since the song itself is a noun. But what if, instead of a title, we considered redecorate to be a message? Tyler's very purposely chosen Redecorate as the title of this song, and I don't think it's just a title. I think it's a command, for a lack of a better term. I think that redecorate means move on, and I think Tyler is saying, if I lose to myself, don't mourn, move on, redecorate. If you think about it, how many of us have decorated our rooms with 21 Pilots merch? We have to remember that the overall message has always been, don't glorify suicide or death. The biggest antagonists of the 21 Pilots story are the leaders of a cult of doing exactly that. And since the suicide of celebrities, and sometimes those closest to us, is inevitable, We have to be reminded to move on. We can't choose denial forever because ultimately the denial is what leads to the glorification of such a horrible thing. So, find your grandparents or someone of age, pay some respects to the path that they paved, to life they were dedicated. Now that should be celebrated.